Hello and welcome to College Football on Tap. I am one of your hosts, Bruno Oger, and then we got Ross here with us today as well. Ross, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. It was an average week for me, but it's only week one. So just gonna fine tune it from here, but
You know,
glad that we're back.
honestly, when you think about when you think about it in those terms, I didn't really even look at how I did betting wise as an overall throughout the whole week of college football. I had a good week in general. I won quite a bit of money on Notre Dame on Saturday night, and then I won a bunch on Thursday night with those opening matchups. So I didn't really even think about how I did generally overall how I put all my posts out there. So that was actually kind of rare for me not to be all over that, but I was very hung high on Notre Dame this week. So
Yeah, I had a nice one. Notre Dame, and then I also did have SC last night over LSU. So those two basically broke me even on this week. The rest of the week, just some of the best teams did not play like you kind of expected them to, where
hmm
a lot of them did not cover where you're expecting those 40-50 point blowouts playing cupcakes week one. A lot of teams did not do that this week. A lot of them were given a run for their money way later into the game than you typically would expect for a warm up. So I lost a good chunk of cards on just stupid things like that, where I think the spreads would be like 35 against a cupcake, and it's like, oh no, they won by 17.
I honestly I look at this week one slate and I'm looking at all those types of matchups. You got the plus 32s and the 38s. I think Akron was a 49 that they had or 55 or something,
Ohio
and
State
Akron
can suck it.
I think Akron covered that when I was watching that late because of what you and Chris were talking about on Friday afternoon, saying if Akron hangs in there in the first half, um, I could see Ohio State just coming out and destroying them in the second half, which kind of did happen, but Ohio State still didn't cover the spread on that one. But
Yeah, three points short of a plus 36 five-legger. That was the last one I needed.
Jason looks like Jason had a bad loss there last night as well. I was backing you too, Jason. I bet on LSU and I put that in early in the morning. I went to a late night after party on Saturday night and got home really late, early morning, and I woke up for maybe an hour or two yesterday before that game and was just like, all right, let me put down a bet on LSU. Fell back asleep, woke up right before the game time, and then went, why did I bet on LSU? Like Brian Kelly in these first games of the year, the first 2 years at LSU, and then our long experience of him being the Notre Dame head coach. Like Brian Kelly doesn't win these games, and I was just like, man, that was a stupid bet. And sure enough, that came to fruition with LSU not able to close it out last night, and USC coming away with a 27-20 victory. What were your
I,
thoughts on the game last night? Did you get to check it out?
I got to check out about half of it. Because I was running solo with Wes last night, so we had to pass out because I knew he'd be up early this morning. But honestly, I did have SC last night, and the whole reason I went with that is neutral environment. But when they said neutral environment, you moved it from SC to Vegas, which is like the easiest travel for that
Yeah,
fan base in the
definitely.
world. Where then when I looked at it, I was like, oh, so this is like actually almost a true home game for SC today to
Yeah.
open the season, and that was like the swing that put me over where I thought week one they're both coming in cold, but the neutral environment is actually just going to be heavy SC in there, and I think, and then plus it's Brian Kelly, man. We've learned from our own personal experiences. I just did not trust Brian Kelly in that type of game. Um, something that Chris and I talked about was I think you're gonna start moving forward. Now that we have the 12-man playoff going on, I think you're gonna see more of these games happen. Really early in the season, where in the non-conference schedules, because you can afford to lose early And then, that team you lost to ends up going on a run, finishing 11-1, 12-0, and you go, well, that was one of our only losses. Look where they finished. It makes a great case for the playoffs at the end of the year because you guys both bit the bullet early in the year and decided to just go head to head. Well, I actually think it's gonna, in the long run, for the 12 teams, that games like last night are gonna pay off for you if you have the balls to do it and just say, "Fuck it, we're picking week one. We're gonna go head to head and get it done."
Yeah, no, you're honestly, I think you're definitely onto something because I mean, if you even look at it from the point of view of like Notre Dame beating Texas A&M, because of the game that they had this week against Texas A&M, everybody's thought now is, well, Notre Dame's probably going to be 11-0 when they play SC at the end of the year. A lot of people taking Florida State out of that conversation, and they got to play Georgia Tech and stuff. But the main thought is Notre Dame now because they played that tough game at the beginning of the year. That this was the game that automatically just put them in the college football playoff. So it could go either way where you get a big win in this first week, like SC did, or you get a big loss, but like LSU, you have time to recover from this loss, especially now with a 12-man playoff.
I,
Like,
I mean, especially even still works for Texas A&M, where if
you know,
Notre Dame goes and runs the table the remainder of the year, and Texas A&M has even anything like a 9-3, 10-2, but they have a late run in the stretch, that turns into, well, look who we lost to week one, or in a very tough game, like when we're sitting 10-2, 9-3 on the bubble. It makes a true case that, but look what, when Notre Dame's like got it locked up at that point, fingers crossed, you still look at Texas A&M and go, yeah, but week one, look what they did, and look what that team went on to do. So it just makes a case later than if you take that loss like in week 13 or 14.
yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. I mean, because we do every single year the week one slate for college football. Yeah, there's a couple of good games out there, but for the most part, you're just looking at these games like, yeah, Alabama versus Alabama A&M. This is going to be a real doozy for you. You get games like that, and they're not the most entertaining, just because these teams are really just trying to go out there and get their footing on for the first time this season, see how they're going to look. It gives them like a lot of these games. One thing that I think we should have all been thinking about before this week one started was take the unders on the first quarter of football games because literally almost every single game I watched this week, nobody's scoring early in these football games. Most of the scoring was done in the second half, late second quarter is when you start to see a lot of these teams ramp up, and it caused for a lot of teams like you were saying earlier, like that were plus 32s, that didn't cover because they didn't go out there and score from the get-go because they're just trying to get their footing against any team. Where if you do bring out that tough matchup right away, though, I think it prepares you for the rest of the season a lot better than playing these, nobody schools from the FCS. Like, no offense to some of them, especially, the North Dakota states and whatnot who entertained us against Colorado. But in general, you kind of get that feeling that if we were able to sit there and watch better games week one, that maybe it would be better for all these teams in the long run instead of like just saying, well, their early season schedule, their non-conference schedule was two FCS schools and then a team from the MAC, and then they played the lowest team in the ACC.
Yeah, and I mean, perfect example is like, look what Idaho did versus Oregon. Really good FCS squad went and gave Oregon the business and hung in there for a majority of the game.
Yeah, yeah, they did. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Iowa recently FBS? Did they just get moved down to the FCS within the last couple of years, or?
I believe so. I feel like they were.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I'm just like, man, I mean, I never watched Idaho Vandals football. I'm surprised I even know they're the Vandals, but it's just,
I feel like they were part of that whole Mountain West absorbing other teams that maybe they got the boot.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Because I feel like over the last couple of years, I mean, like we had the story with Liberty last year, we had the story with James Madison, these new schools that are trying to establish themselves in the FBS and the rules that come with going to bowl games and whatnot with it. So I feel like we've been seeing an influx of teams that we might have not have seen, but maybe throughout that time, there's like a back door of teams that are also leaving that we're not even paying attention to at that point.
Yeah, I mean, for some of these programs, wouldn't it almost make sense? Like if you're a bottom feeder at FBS, you drop down to FCS and you're suddenly a powerhouse.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that that's kind of the story with UMass as well, and then they've kind of gone back and forth, being in the MAC, being outside, being independent, coming from the FCS. Like they've been all over in the last 20 years of their program. That game I do remember betting on, and it did not go well. Um, I for some reason thought, they're playing Eastern Michigan at home. UMass has been better over recent years. It'd be a good game for them, but Eastern Michigan, I did get to watch quite a bit of it, and they took care of business there. Um, but yeah, in general, the big games for this weekend, I think that they honestly all lived up to expectations for the most part. I mean, outside of Georgia and Clemson, we were hoping to see a little bit more fight from Clemson, but when I watched that Georgia team, like me and my roommate were just sitting there like, Georgia's defense is fast. They're real fast. Like these Clemson, and we know what kind of talent Clemson has. I mean, I was expecting a lot from Maffa, and they were getting him involved in the game as much as they could, but it just did not matter. Georgia was absolutely insanely stellar on defense, so fast. Like every play, I was just like, these guys would be crushing people in the NFL right now because they are just
Mhm.
that quick.
Yeah, I was laughing. I don't know if you saw for the Bears that Ryan Poles was basically at all the big games on the same day. Like he was in Atlanta that morning for Georgia, and then he was in College Station later that night for A&M and Notre Dame, just plane hopping everywhere to catch the big ones. And I think he potentially was in Vegas last night for SC LSU.
That's absolutely insane, and that's why I think we here in Chicago love Ryan Poles. I mean, the guy is just top notch.
Where can I see the highest level of talent and just all at once? And like, here's my 3 marquee games. I'm gonna be everywhere.
Yeah, that's awesome. It shows this dedication to a team, and I mean everything that we've seen even through Hard Knocks and stuff. But yeah, I love Ryan Poles. But yeah, like you watch this Georgia game, man. Like the whole entire first half, I was just like, is Clemson going to be able to break through since Georgia, once again, as we were already talking about, like we weren't getting much offense early and we didn't in that game. We actually started to get offense because in the second half, because I think Georgia's first drive of the second half was a touchdown, and that was the first touchdown of that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, a 34-3 blowout. Not the end of the world for Clemson. It just shows that it might be a long way of going for a lot of these schools that are not the Georgias and the Alabamas in the world to catch up to that level of play. Because you figure Clemson's, a team that you would think has a good shot at winning the ACC like they normally do. So a team that would be there late in the season having to play one of those powerhouse SEC schools again. Not that the SEC had the best weekend in terms of their ranked opponents.
No, I don't know if you saw for the 4 primetime games, 1 and 3.
Yeah, yeah. So that's something ESPN is not going to tell you about this week. I should say the 4-letter network. They ain't going to tell you about that this week because that's just how they roll. But yeah, the SEC in these prime games, LSU going down, Texas A&M going down, Florida again, absolutely steamrolled by Miami. I did not expect to see that, but
And then just casually not gonna mention the fact that the Big Ten went 17-1. Nice job, Minnesota, dropping the ball.
yeah. Honestly, that won me a lot of money. That was $520 into my DraftKings account. So I was all for it. I was actually sitting at work, and luckily my line was on a red light, so I had the game on my phone, and I'm sitting there, and I just start screaming when they missed the field goal. I was going nuts. So
Well, I was laughing. Did you see Minnesota set off the fireworks?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we shared that on the page too because that was just too good to
Just
be true.
all time loss. We celebrate with fireworks that we lost.
But I mean, even the fireworks guys are, just getting started for the season. They got 5 more home games to make up for that. So,
So
um,
we'll see.
yeah, but in general, I mean, Georgia obviously studded out for the SEC, but yeah, I mean, it did show that a lot of these SEC schools are the top-notch schools. They struggle in these big games as well, so they are beatable teams. But Georgia definitely did not look like a team that was beatable on Saturday. They gave up a total of 189 yards on defense. And Clemson, like I said, Clemson's got top talent. I mean, we know what they're capable of. They played really good football to end the season last year too. I think they ended on a 6-game win streak. Um, and then yeah, just to see how Georgia just manhandled them in every aspect of the game, especially in that second half. I mean, the defense was stellar throughout, but it wasn't much of a football game anymore, and it was kind of disappointing that Penn State and West Virginia went into a weather delay because when that game got out of the hand, I was like, okay, well, it'd be good to be able to flip to that one now, but
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was the one that killed me. I had good vibes for West Virginia PSU, but once it hit that weather delay and PSU got that last second touchdown, I was like, oh, this weather delay is going to kill any momentum, any shot
oh yeah.
WVU is going to have here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was feeling good. I did go against you and Chris on that one. I felt Penn State was going to take care of them. I kind of had this feeling that West Virginia was just being a little overrated in that game by a lot of people, in terms of the media in general. And then I mean, it was just because they were at home, and I sat there the whole week, and I'm like, man, if West Virginia's playing this game at nighttime against Penn State, I'm feeling completely different about Penn State's chances and how they were going to handle them. I mean, I would still think Penn State was going to win, but I honestly thought with it being a day game, thought Penn State would roll them. And I mean, it was 20-6 at halftime. And then, like you said, the weather definitely, if there was any shot for West Virginia to have a shot that game, they couldn't have had that weather delay. That was going to ruin the crowd. I mean, I didn't even see, I was out somewhere at the time when the game did come back on. So I didn't see if a big crowd did come back for that game. But I figured it had to have dispersed quite a bit.
Yeah, there was that, and honestly, the biggest game that I think nobody watched that was most entertaining was holy shit, Vanderbilt outright versus VT in overtime.
That is what I switched to. Well, I had 2 games on the TV. So I had the Vanderbilt game on when the Penn State game went into a weather delay. So I did kind of go back and forth between having Vanderbilt on the main screen, main TV there because the game did get interesting. And it did feel like watching that game. Vanderbilt was up by 17 at one point, I believe it was, and Virginia Tech took over in the second half. Virginia Tech was the better team in the second half, kind of what we would expect normally from Vanderbilt. And when Vanderbilt scored that late touchdown to tie the game up before overtime, because I think there was only like 15 seconds left on the clock or something. Um, I was telling my buddy, like, hey, I think Vanderbilt has to go for 2 here. Like, I think you got to win the game now because your defense hasn't stopped them the whole entire second half. And this is a huge win for that school if they could pull it off. And I think the best opportunity would be to go for 2. They didn't do that, obviously, and they ended up going to overtime. And they did prevail. The defense did make a play, and they ended up getting the win in that fashion that they did. But I thought when they blew that big lead, for sure, I thought Virginia Tech was going to take it in overtime.
Yeah, and I had a feeling this is where I actually shot myself in the foot on 2 different cards. One of them hit because I did have Vanderbilt on the points because I thought that Vanderbilt at the end of the last year actually was playing a little bit better. Where I thought this week 1, that 13.5, I thought that was a fair number that they were going to cover that. But on another card, I did have Virginia Tech outright because
Okay.
I thought I thought like, hey, VT is going to win this game, but I don't think they're going to win by as much as we think they're going to win by. And so it was kind of doing a split card on different sides. So hit one, lost the other because Vanderbilt did impressively win outright.
Yeah, I looked at that game too, and I saw the spread, and I thought about taking Vanderbilt um, on the spread line, and then I was just like, it's so tough. Like these week one matchups, like I didn't want to overdo it because it's so easy to overdo anything when it comes back and you missed it so much. Like I did college football, and being on the high from the money that I won on Thursday, I'm just like, I can't put too many games on my card because if I do, I'm probably going to regret it. And I don't know a crap ton about a lot of these teams yet. I mean, we could see what we've seen from the transfer portal and who came in where, but it's like some of these teams will take some weeks before it's comfortable enough to put money on them. So I shied away from it. But God, now obviously I wish I would have ended up going with what my head thought on that one and took the spread money with Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I had that, and then ISU made me look good for 3 quarters.
Oh man, you're talking about Illinois State, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
so, uh
I I was watching and I saw like 6-6, and I was like, all right, I'm feeling really good about that 24 right now. And then it goes into the third, and I look and it's like 12-0. I'm like, all right, well, we're already halfway through the third. Like, I got another 12 points to spare here. We're looking good. And then I turned it off for a while on my phone. And then I opened it back up and it's like 40-0. And I was like, oh shit.
yeah, I honestly, like, when I saw how many points Iowa was starting to put up there, I was just like, "Oh my god, we can't talk crap about Iowa anymore." Like, not if they do this. I actually saw a stat this morning that last year Iowa had 3 passing touchdowns to wide receivers, and then the year before they had 2 passing touchdowns to wide receivers. Well, on Saturday they had 3 in that one game, so they already tied the number of passing touchdowns to wide receivers in that one game on Saturday than what they had all of last season.
Yeah. And did you see what they got out of that performance? That the top wide receiver in Iowa committed to them yesterday. He's like a 4.5 star recruit at
No,
receiver.
no, I did not
Yeah,
see that.
they did host him. He's one of the top receivers. He's from like Iowa or Texas, but
Okay.
he's like a 4.5 star wide out. And then yesterday their official account was tweeting out he did commit to them yesterday. So clearly that passing performance and them actually throwing the ball, uh, they got something big out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome for them. Maybe we'll be seeing a transformation of the Iowa offense. And I mean, anywhere you look on Twitter, everybody dogs on Iowa's offense. I mean, it was happening all day on Saturday. Like when other teams weren't scoring points, they're like, "Oh, we got an Iowa game. We got an Iowa game." So
Yeah, I had a feeling that they maybe looked at their phones at halftime, and that was the change.
gotcha. Yeah, I got you there. Well, I'm looking forward actually this week. I was going to be playing Iowa State, and I saw the line was already at like -3 for Iowa, and I'm like, man, they put up 40 points last week. I might have to jump on Iowa here. So Iowa might be getting a bet from me this next coming week, which last year I was just I bet against them in every opportunity I can in any spread or any like except for late in the season when those over and under start coming in at 28 and 29, but. Um,
That sounds rough. I don't know if I could do that. It might just
yeah,
be left off.
yeah, definitely. So we'll see. We'll see. Iowa might get some money put down on from me this coming week. Uh, but yeah, they overall Illinois State I don't think has really been in the best of shape over the last couple of years. I don't think they've been in the playoffs in the last 2 or 3 years. So not the best FCS school. Uh,
Yeah,
Jason Jason's saying the 4-star wide receiver that committed from Iowa. I'm pretty sure that he's from Aurora, Illinois. So he's actually not too far from me here, if that is the case. So 4-star recruit from Aurora, Illinois. Don't even know what the schools are besides East Aurora out there.
yeah. And then what was I gonna say? Oh, total brain fart now. What I was gonna ask you about.
Um, I can't help you.
Yeah, no,
It's gone. If it comes
yeah,
back, we'll circle back to it.
yeah. We'll figure it. I'm sure it'll come back. It's that
All
early
right.
Monday morning fog brain.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. Um, yeah, so obviously going back to kind of like talking about recruits here in Iowa getting that recruit. Did you see what the U was doing as they were walking off the field after they beat Florida that day on Saturday?
No,
So
I turned it off.
Florida had a bunch of recruits there that they were hosting, preseason into it, and Miami as they were walking out after beating them, they were yelling, all the players were yelling, "We own Florida. We are Florida. You better not go to Florida. You better come to Miami. You better go to the U." Telling all the recruits that were hosted by Florida, "You guys better come to the U. You don't want to go to Florida." Um, so definitely a different kind of feeling there. I've never seen that happen at the end of a college football game where the other team was literally going to all the other recruits, which I'm sure a bunch of them are actually Miami recruits as well or targets. Um, so we'll see if that really like ends up being a big swing and Florida ends up getting a lot less recruits just because the U boys were telling them, "You better come here. You don't want to go there."
Yeah, I mean, there was that, and then I was laughing. I don't know if you saw the as of this morning the Roddy White backlash from Georgia and Clemson because that just made me laugh.
No, I did not see any of that.
Oh yeah, Roddy White is in the doghouse, at least on social media, because he was just posting like, how does Clemson expect to win in a game like this? They got nothing but white dudes out there.
Sorry, I got the dog over here ripping stuff apart. I don't know what he's doing right now.
Yeah,
uh,
all good.
um, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
he was commenting. He's like, every skilled position player on Clemson is a white guy. How do you expect to compete? And then I was laughing the entire time, and I was just like, I mean, he ain't completely wrong.
yeah. I honestly I didn't see any of that. I wish I would have actually though. Um, and I kind of do enjoy when old players do get involved in, supporting their school. I mean, you even seen it. You could see the tweets from Caleb Williams last night. I think Jamar Chase was actually at the game last night cheering on LSU. So yeah, I mean, it's cool to like get these guys that are now big time athletes in the NFL, get a little bit back and forth chirping with each other, making these little side bets and going at each other when their alma maters play. And especially the ones that are able to just sit there and take the time to even just go back to their school and cheer them on. I think Jamar
Eh,
Chase was actually like what after the wide receiver for LSU caught that touchdown. Jamar Chase was telling him, "You can't do that kind of stuff, man." Like because he did that 3 pump that got him the flag.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's cool. Like they're still showing that like, hey, we might not be on the team anymore, but we're still on the team in a kind of way.
Yeah, that and watch all the side bets, guys. The NFL is watching.
Yeah, definitely. uh, um, what other games did we haven't actually got into our homerism on Notre Dame yet, like we kind of figured we would. I actually thought we were just going to kick off this show and just kind of go hardcore Notre Dame love, which obviously, well, it was a great win. It's kind of a different feeling for the Notre Dame fans in general to go out there and get the big win early. I mean, I remember crying over Ohio State last year, and it's just like we haven't seemed to been able to get the big one. But Marcus Freeman, the way that he even presented himself before the game, as they were walking out of the tunnel, it just felt different. And this Notre Dame team feels different, and they definitely look different. The defense is
Right.
stellar, and
Riley Leonard with the coldest move of all time, signaling first down, still in the mid air on the fourth down attempt, was the
yeah,
coldest and coolest thing I've ever seen a quarterback do. Still, he's literally being held like 6 feet in the air by like 300-pound linemen, like about to get thrown to the ground. And before he gets like pummeled to the ground, he just wants the whole 12th man to know, I got it.
yeah. Riley Leonard is big boy. He's a big boy and he's a beast. I actually put him for my big parlay that I hit on the Notre Dame game. I had him for over 33 rushing yards in there because I'm like, this when he gets going, he's big, he's tough. He actually he'll put his head down and throw some pads in you. So I kind of believed in his running game. And granted, Notre Dame's offense was not anywhere near as good as I think they can be and will be after a few more games, which is huge for them to get this win when they are at that level that they're at right now. Offensively, we know their defense is just star-studded up and down. I mean, their secondary second to none. But for the offense to be able to come out there and handle the 12th man the way that they did, it didn't seem like there was too many flags that were unnecessary or something that would normally get a team that came into an environment that was scared of it. They definitely weren't scared of the 12th man. They weren't scared of Texas A&M. The game was close, but I didn't think it even needed to be that close when it came down to it at the end because I thought Notre Dame was just a better team all around.
Yeah, definitely. I think this was a big step for week one. I think beginning of the game looks like both teams kind of started out slow, trying to figure out how to even really find a rhythm going. And then that second half, Riley Leonard just kind of took control and embraced that it's his team right now, and that he's going to kind of guide them along. Nice, almost ideally like what we were hoping Sam Hartman would have done last year. It looks like Riley Leonard kind of took the reins right away in this first game and was like, "No, this is my team now. I'm here for one. I have one job here, and that's for us to go 12-0."
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely feel that. And I mean, I don't know if you had the opportunity yet to watch Here Come the Irish on Peacock. Um,
Not yet.
definitely suggest checking it out. The first two episodes were very good. I watched the second one last night, and you could already like even in that, like I mean, obviously they are only up to spring or up to camp this August. They were still a couple of weeks away from Texas A&M where they left off, but everything that Riley Leonard has shown in that show, even he's a leader. He screams leader. And the same thing, like we got a lot of Jack Kaiser stuff yesterday, a lot of Xavier Watch yesterday on the episodes. Um, it's honestly like there's a feeling of aura around these guys, around the leadership, and I think Riley Leonard is just going to be a lot different than how the Sam Hartman thing went. I mean, Sam Hartman didn't perform to the level that we really wished he would have. He wasn't awful. I mean, don't get me wrong, he wasn't awful, but he didn't take that role as much as we thought that he would. He didn't look as impressive as he did over his time in Wake Forest. So Riley Leonard has the chance to be able to do that. And I think the confidence that he shows and like just like you said, him even like pointing for the first down there just shows that he's got this confidence and just he didn't care. That place could be as loud as they wanted to be. He was cool, calm, composed. We weren't making the penalties that you would expect in that kind of environment, and that's why Notre Dame was the better looking team, and they ended up getting the win.
Yeah, and what really stood out to me was the little E60 thing that they started the game with, the him and Elko, and him just kind of breaking down and be like, this is bigger than like he's still one of my friends. He's still a mentor. I still talk to him. This is not me versus him. This is Notre Dame versus Texas A&M, and that is what I'm focused on. And I was like, that's the answer. That's the difference between why he's going to be successful this year. I thought that was the best thing he could do is be like, this is not about us. That he's a mentor. He's still a coach. We still talk, but this is not Riley Leonard versus Mike Elko. This is Notre Dame versus Texas A&M.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And I mean that being able to handle it that way and coming in with that um thought process, I mean, it's a different it's a great way to go into a big game like this and knowing like even with the having Mike Elko on the other side, knowing that he was going to be in a situation where he knows the defense and he has an advantage. But even at that point, the coach knows a little something else about you from experience. I mean, no matter how much tape you watch on any other quarterback, that firsthand always being around him, knowing your tendencies, like they both had a little bit of something on each other, and Riley handled that very well. And I mean, I didn't have any moment in the game where I was just like, "Oh man, this guy's not gonna cut it here," or uh, "This might not go as well as we thought." I kind of just thought in terms of the process of the offense. It's going to take time for them to be at their full capabilities, but by the time they get into those next big games like Florida State, I think that we're going to see an offense that's going to be very, very tough to beat.
Yeah. And I know for tonight, I think I'm leaning towards the Boston College points. I do think Florida State's going to win that game, but I do not think Florida State is as good as we are chalking them up to be.
You also have to think Bill O'Brien's taken over at Boston College. I mean, that's a game changer in my mind. And Boston College has shown the ability to sit there and compete in games in the past. I think last year they even kept it close with Florida State. Uh, and I mean, I know NIU beat Boston College last year, but
Yeah.
Boston College, I think, is definitely. I already put down my bet this morning when I got my profit boost. So I already put a $25 boosted bet down on Boston College to cover with 16.5 tonight. Because I'm right there with you. And I mean, DJ Uigale, I think that's actually how you say it. I might be right this time for once. He just doesn't he's just too inconsistent. I just don't see him pulling away from any games, honestly, based off of his set. Like he's a good quarterback, but he's not anyone who stays consistent enough. And Boston College has been they're going to be on the up and up with Bill O'Brien at head coach. So I think Boston College
Yeah.
covering is a very good bet.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you hit it on the head that I thought the 16.5 was kind of disrespectful to Boston College.
Yeah.
I do think that absolutely Florida State wins this game, especially being at home after the tough loss last week. I think this is the rebound, but I think the game changers, Bill O'Brien on the sideline there, that team's going to come in and be competitive, and you're going to get a get a good defense where I think they are going to hold it to probably about like a 10 point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it'll be something that, well, I have to work on Labor Day, so I will unfortunately be paying attention while at work. Um, I think that it'll be one of those where I am paying close attention in the fourth quarter because I'll probably actually honestly be listening to the Cubs game while I'm working tonight. And as the Cubs game ends, I will transfer my focus over to the fourth quarter of the Boston College game. And I'm hoping that it is one of those games where I'm like, okay, sweet. Florida State's up 6 with 9 minutes left. I got 9 minutes of more entertainment to get me through this work shift. So,
Yeah, exactly.
um, yeah. And I mean, in general, after that, I think Florida State, like, they could end up being a team later on come this season that we're not even looking at as a ranked opponent when Notre Dame does have to go ahead and face them, just because everything I saw last week was just kind of made me lower my expectations in what Florida State might end up being.
Yeah.
Jason, I'm not gonna. I would say on a 49.5 with Boston College in the game. I would suspect this is going to be a lot lower scoring. So I would go under the 49.5 if I was an over under better, which I tend to stay away from unless something really sticks out about the teams on these games, and that normally doesn't happen to me until week 5, week 6 because I want to get to know these teams. But I would say the under is the best because Boston College is going to try and run the ball a lot more. I think control the ball, control the clock, and that's the best way to stay in a game and not let a team that might have a little bit more talent in Florida State run away with it. Um,
Agreed.
Other than that one coming up tonight, I know next week we get a little bit heavier into the slate. I actually will be at Notre Dame to see mine and Ross's alma mater in NIU play Notre Dame. I'll be there cheering on the Irish, though, just because I guess that's just how I am wired. I mean, that's just how I'm wired as a human to cheer for the Irish, but I won't be hating on NIU if they end up playing a little bit well. I saw the spread on that's 29.5 right now. So after NIU coming out there and scoring 54 points this week, it'll be interesting to see how that offense kind of goes into South Bend and plays with the Irish. Um, I
Yeah.
thought I thought you said something and you muted yourself and didn't know.
No, I was talking to Wes.
All right. But yeah, I'll be there next week at that Notre Dame game. I'll be sure to send in a lot of videos on the College Football on Tap Twitter page, um, for us to kind of see the experience of someone at a Notre Dame game day. And hopefully there will be more games down the line that we could kind of do that with. But yeah, I'll be definitely posting a lot of video content onto that page and I probably won't have the ability to check out so many games. Do you know what time is Texas Michigan an 11 a.m. start?
I would anticipate it is.
Yeah, I believe that it is. So that's going to be one where I'm at the tailgate. Hopefully, we're going to be in the north lot of the Notre Dame game. So I'm
11
hoping that
a.m.
they're
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm hoping some fans have a nice little TV set up for us to watch that game before we go into a stadium there in South Bend, because that's obviously going to be a real banger to watch. And it's really going to give us that idea of what is Michigan this year. We didn't really get that with Fresno State this week, I feel. Fresno State's a good football school. They're not a bad team whatsoever. I thought that the spread was a little disrespectful, even with what Michigan has lost, as it was at 21. So I did take Fresno State. They only covered by 1 point, but as a 30-10 final, because Fresno State wasn't able to score so much. But it was a lot closer of a football game than I think the Michigan fans really expected to see in that one.
Yeah, I think Michigan is gonna kind of. I think they're a good team. I think they're gonna kind of find their way throughout the season. But I don't know how I feel about them right now. I think there is going to be a rebuild process.
Oh yeah, I mean, I see them being a team that ends up maybe still ranked at the end of the year, but I think they're going to lose 3 games. I just see them losing 3 games, and this might be one of them. I did see that in the chat earlier. We were being asked if we were going to hammer Texas -6.5. I don't know yet. I'm gonna sleep on this for a little bit this week. Kind of just look through. I would think I think right now that is the best bet if I do end up wanting to place a bet. I don't think Michigan's going to cover 6.5 at this point, but I would rather just sit here and take my time before I make the jump at making that bet for sure, because I think there's a lot of things that we got to look at from this previous week before you kind of just completely dog on Michigan, because I think a lot of people are, just because of everything they lost, the new head coach and everything. So we all have lower expectations for Michigan, but might not have everything we need to back that yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a couple weeks before we really even are jumping all over these spreads and stuff like normal, because I think last week was such a weird week for how teams played, even against some of their cupcake opponents. That was it just a bad day, or is it just this team is not gonna be as dominant as we thought they would be?
Yeah, I mean, this it's such a crazy way to look at college football now, with the way that the rule changes have come in, the new conferences. Everything about college football is completely different this year. And I said it last week on the show that, like, at first I didn't think that this was going to be something that I was going to be excited about. And then all of a sudden the idea grew on me as we got closer and closer to season. And now I'm looking at all these marquee matchups that we get throughout the season, week after week. It's just it's going to be a lot more entertaining with this college football playoff, and we're going to be looking at teams that we normally wouldn't be looking at past week 7 because they lost 2 games, and being like, well, they might be really damn good, like a Clemson from last year. I mean, didn't think much about Clemson until they played Notre Dame last year and beat Notre Dame, and then they're like, man, Clemson's pretty good again. And thought that might carry into this season. And like we said, we won't hold it against them for the way they played against Georgia. We'll give them time as the season progresses to see what they end up truly being.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be. And then one thing that like Chris and I talked about is I think the hot seat opens up a lot quicker for a lot of people now with the 12-team format. That there's 12 teams getting in, and I think a lot of teams are going to start to really quickly evaluate where they are and say, anyone can have your team be 8-4, but you know,
Number,
you know,
nope.
8-4 used to be a really respectable. You get into a decent bowl still, and now 8-4 might be the first spot outside the playoff,
Yeah, I
and that
mean,
turns in and that turns into you. Anyone can go 8-4. I need someone that gets me 9-3, 10-2.
so do you honestly think that a team with 3 losses makes it into the college football playoff?
I think it is very possible, depending who the losses are.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, because like we said, I mean, you got a team like Oregon who literally has an insane schedule to deal with, but they could also run away with games and they could also get beat in games. And you just really don't know what to expect after how they played this week. But they have such a tough schedule in general that they could be a team that's literally number one or a team that's number 36 at the end of the year. So it's just,
Yeah, I mean, I think a great place to start is looking at the Big Ten, looking at the SEC with how loaded they are. I think you can easily have a team go 8-4, 9-3 in there, and they have 8 awesome quality victories along with 4. They played a powerhouse and they hung in. They lost by a couple points. I think that makes a case for the 12th seed, odd, last man in.
yeah.
That if they're winning the big games at the right time, I think you could have a 4 or 3 loss team take that last spot as an
Well,
at large.
yeah, and I mean my dream with this is, since there has to be a fifth conference team that gets in there that's not in the major four conferences now. My dream is that Notre Dame goes out there and beats NIU this week, and then NIU doesn't lose a game the rest of the year, and then the college football playoff at the end of the year, it's Notre Dame versus NIU part 2.
Right?
That's the dream.
We could dream.
But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting because I really haven't even. I guess it would be good to kind of look back at previous year's rankings and see where teams that were 9-3 finished. And honestly, a team like when you bring in like coaches might get on the hot seat a little bit sooner. I think last night was our biggest showing of who might be on the hot seat in Brian Kelly. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously our like the name that we put for this show was No More Kelly Dancing, Just Fist, because he pounded on that table. And I mean, that's for us to have watched Brian Kelly now in a more closer eye for 15 years. Um, and see that kind of emotion about him even saying that he's pissed off at his football team. Like, yeah, you want to know why he's pissed off at his football team? Because he knows that if he does not make the college football playoff, he might get next year too. But if he doesn't make the college football playoff this year and most certainly next year, he's gone. And
I honestly think if you don't make it this year, I think there's
that's
a very good case that gone.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what the mindset is completely there, but like this is the kind of thing that Notre Dame fans warned LSU about was Brian Kelly doesn't win the big game. And I think that's something that Notre Dame fans in general have even harsher sentiments on now because Notre Dame just went and won a big game without him on the road. And it's the first time we've had a road win like that in I don't even know. It's been a long time, and to have that big of a game early on in the season and go get it, and then Brian Kelly to go out there and have a game that I think LSU pretty much had in hand. LSU gave that game away yesterday. Um, with LSU giving that game away that they did, and Brian Kelly even said it in his own press conference, he did not have his guys ready. He's got to coach them better. Well, let's see how that goes going forward because I mean, if he doesn't get this on track soon, he's going to be gone. And I think I sent you and a bunch of the other guys that we talk with a meme earlier of what Brian Kelly is going to sound like in 2 years when he's the head coach at Rutgers, because he's going to have to
Yep.
change his he's going to have to change his accent again.
Yep. I mean, also another hot seat right away already. Week 1, Billy Napier.
Oh yeah, that's 100%. Florida last year, like we came in last year saying they're younger, that's going to take them a little bit, but give them a year or two, they're going to start really turning heads again. And that I guess it did turn my head the way they performed, but not in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think that's 2 right off the bat that are automatically on the hot seat now with how the playoff expanded. That you need to that being 9-3 still has the chance to get in that playoff. If you can't even meet that bar, bye.
yeah. I honestly, and it could change so quickly for some of these coaches. I think a great example of that would also be Ryan Day. Uh, There's no there's n everybody's thoughts on Ohio State this year is that they're gonna run through, they're gonna go undefeated. They're top notch now. There's no chance they ain't losing to Michigan again. That all these thoughts out there with them. Ryan Day's never even beat Michigan. Um, if Ryan Day doesn't beat Michigan this year, I mean, unless Michigan really does end up being a lot better than we do expect them to be, like if it, that's it for him. Like you can't lose to Michigan again this year. It's it for you, especially if you lose another game. I think what is it, October 5th, I believe was the date when they play Oregon, and there's all those great matchups on TV that day where if somebody scheduled a wedding or something, it would just be really really sick of them to do that to us. But uh, I mean, if he ends up losing 2 games and one of those games is to Michigan, he might not have a job next year, and he could go from just a guy who feels locked in, like Ohio State's not gonna lose a game this year, to a guy who's on the hot seat really, really quick. Because I think losing 4 years in a row to Michigan is pretty much where, that that
Fireable
fan
offense
base
itself.
yeah, that fan base has had enough of you. So doesn't matter if you win every other game, you can't lose to Michigan again. So it really can be you don't make the college football playoff, you don't beat your rival. These things could really shape up and change things really, really quickly for guys who might not be in the hot seat yet, but they'll definitely be on a hot seat and might go from the hot seat to ice cold, you're gone.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing to wrap on for today's episode is I realized what I was going to ask you about. Um, and it's I just don't understand with this man, and I know we love him from the past. Jerry Kill resigned from New Mexico State last year again after putting that team back together, saying wanted to step away from football, take it easy. Please tell me if that's the case. Why the fuck is Jerry Kill the offensive analyst at Vanderbilt this year?
I was when he came on the TV, because I did not know about this until he came on the TV. I literally was just like, wait, didn't he just wasn't he just the head coach like at New Mexico? And I'm just like, where has this guy come? Like he's been everywhere in the last couple of years. Like it's
Did you
yeah,
make it like a whole 6 weeks and change your mind?
yeah. It's honestly like Brett Favre syndrome. Like, you know what? I think I am gonna quarterback this year. It's just like,
Yeah. I was like, you literally finished in like second in the voting for like coach of the year for how he turned that team
yeah,
around. And then he stepped away after the bowl game. And then like they were talking about him during the game, and I had to double take. I'm like, he just resigned to be away from football. What do you mean he's the offensive analyst at Vanderbilt now?
yeah. I mean, Jerry Kill, obviously, if you have not followed his career, I mean, we have followed him because he was the head coach at NIU back when we were having one of the most craziest runs of a lifetime. And it continued on when he left and Dave Doran took over. But he was a very loved coach at NIU, and then he took the job at Minnesota. And then he left Minnesota. He was having a lot of seizures, something that he's had a issue with his whole career. And then PJ Fleck took over. There was the battle between PJ Fleck and Jerry Kill because Fleck didn't like Jerry Kill's recruits and thought they were all soft. And he was going to change the whole program, so they got into it. Kill was gone for a while, then he came back, left again, came back, left again, and this time it was very short-lived, obviously, because I had no idea that he was back in anywhere doing anything. But it could also just be one of those things when you're considered an offensive analyst, he probably doesn't have to be there every day. So it gives him the chance to be in involved in the game that he still loves, but not put the big health risks on top of him. That I think that would be his main cause there, is just being a head coach of a college football program has to be one of the most stressful jobs in the world because it never ends. When the
Except,
game ends, you're back to recruiting.
except I went and I looked through. So he stepped away multiple times now for health concerns. Have you seen what he did in that time away from the game?
No.
So he left Minnesota in 2015 after the seizure disorder. For that 1 year, he went and was the associate athletic director at Kansas State. Like you didn't take yourself out of anything because now you're just running a whole department, right?
Yeah.
Then he goes to Rutgers and he's the offensive coordinator and QB coach the following season. And then he claims, I need to go for health concerns again. Ends up the athletic director at Southern Illinois for 2 years. Like, okay, you're again not away from the game. You're running the whole school at this point for sports. And then from there, he goes to TCU, where he's the offensive coordinator for 3 seasons, eventually the interim head coach, steps away for 1 year, and then comes back to be the head coach at New Mexico State. So
Yeah.
he's every time he's left, he never actually left. He just went and did something else.
I guess if people aren't tracking you like you are, you can
I just went to look because like I looked at his wiki page because I was like, didn't we literally just resign like 6 months ago? That I'm taking leave of absence, whatever, focusing on my health. And then they brought that up and I went and looked. And then I just looked through his record. I was like, you never actually left when you said you were taking a break for your health. You went and you did something else.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. That's crazy. Like, it's crazy to see how much he's done in the past 9 years on it, honestly, since leaving Minnesota. Because I know it's been a
Yeah.
while since he left Minnesota, and I'm honestly, like, I guess kind of shocked that PJ Fleck is still the head coach at Minnesota after all that time. But yeah, that's wild. Like, I guess it's just he's found a way to sit there and use this health concern thing to be like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. But I really don't understand why he would have wanted to walk away from New Mexico State at this point, uh, especially after turning them around last year. And with these new rules, again, you win a conference. You go 11-1 and 12-0 as a FC or as an FBS school in a Mountain West or any of these conferences. Your 12-0 is probably good enough for you to be playing a college football playoff game now. And
yeah, but for health concerns, instead of coaching like a Mountain West or Conference USA school, I'm actually just going to be an offensive analyst in the SEC because that sounds a lot less stressful.
I mean, it does sound a lot stressful. But I mean, he's not making the play calls out there, but he still was on the sidelines on Saturday, which, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we'll see where he's the head coach at next year. But yeah, with that, we got one more game here tonight. We'll be looking at the future with these games next weekend. We'll be coming back some point this week to talk a little bit more. Probably Ross and Chris will be on for that one, and I will be able to get back into more of a regular role after my getaway trip to Notre Dame this weekend. But I'll be for sure giving as much content as I can of the atmosphere of the tailgate and the atmosphere of getting inside the stadium for the Notre Dame home opener against Northern Illinois this weekend. And obviously, we'll be following along with the big matchups such as the Texas-Michigan game, of course. Ross, any final thoughts?
Nope. Go Boston College. Let's cover these points.
Yeah. So, Jason, I know you said you were looking for your best bet. That's where me and Ross are tonight. So if you want to follow me and him with 16 and a half points, that would be where I would go. I'm not going to sit there and tell you for sure, but if you wanted to take that over under, take that under. Um, Other than that, enjoy this last game. Everyone enjoy their Labor Day. I'm going to get some sleep, and we'll be back within the week. So keep following along, and that's it from us here. All
Sounds
right,
good.
everyone. Everyone, enjoy your day. That's it from us here at College Football on Tap, brought to you by On Tap Sports Network. Have a good week.